Well, the nuclear energy debate is back in the headlines today, and it paints a confusing picture for the Albanese government. It highlights the hypocrisy of Labor and the left when it comes to nuclear. It also points to the sacrifices that will need to be made over the coming years as a result of renewables. Prime Minister Anthony Albanese and his Energy Minister Chris Bowen have the blinkers on. They refuse to entertain the idea of nuclear energy. Why? Because they've put all of their eggs in the basket of renewables. They're also determined to reach an unrealistic goal of net zero by 2050. That means massive wind turbines off the beautiful Australian coastline, solar panels everywhere, and thousands of kilometres of transmission lines. They'll effectively destroy prime agricultural land across the country. It makes no sense, especially when you consider Australia has an abundance of uranium. Given that's the case, why do we ship it to other countries? Shouldn't we first be using it to power the Australian electricity grid? Well, no, we've instead got a moratorium that was put in place back in 1998. That effectively bans the use of nuclear power as a form of energy. So, when you break it down, we're happy to sell our natural resources to other countries, but we refuse to use it ourselves. Go figure. The result is a looming energy crisis. We've got Australians paying the highest electricity prices in the world. Now, you'd think the federal government would follow the lead of some of the other left-leaning political parties abroad. But it's been revealed Labor's policy on nuclear is actually at odds with the likes of Slovakia, France and Finland. Some of their Labor counterparts in Europe are going to build more reactors. Why are they doing it? Well, to reach net zero by 2050. But here in Australia, Albo and Chris Bowen, they want wind turbines. The UK's Keir Starmer says nuclear power is a critical part of their energy mix. The Labor MP has promised to extend the lifetime of existing plants and get new reactors over the line. We've also got additional reactors being built in places like France. Finland has indicated it'll be building more of them as well. The former chief of ANSTO has weighed in today. Addy Patterson has told The Telegraph, our anti-nuclear stance is driven by a completely understandable historical context, such as opposition to nuclear weapons testing in the Pacific, related ecological concerns and Cold War fears, but it's led to a radical oversimplification of the nuclear energy debate, which crystallised a long-term rigidity on the issue within the left faction of the Labor Party. Patterson points to what's happening overseas, saying that European nations aspiring to have a low-carbon grid had accepted the need for nuclear as a source of baseload power to support the net zero transition. Let's not forget we're talking about countries with left-leaning governments. Look, the other angle to this comes in the form of the sacrifices needed. According to the Grattan Institute, if we continue down this all-or-nothing path of renewables, we will struggle to build roads and other forms of critical infrastructure. Put simply, Australia does not have the construction capacity to do it. I would have thought that puts the Brisbane Olympics in jeopardy. Think of all the infrastructure that needs to be built by 2032. Energy experts are warning taxpayers of footing the bill because this government won't entertain nuclear. Get this, up to $50 billion. $50 billion will need to be invested every year in the current transition to renewables for the next 3 decades. That's $50 billion with a B, $50 billion a year for the next 30 years. That's the same amount spent on the nation's defence in 2024. Grattan Institute energy and climate expert Alison Reeves says, we're trying to build an awful lot of stuff all at once. We're trying to build airports, roads, tunnels, Snowy Hydro 2.0, the Olympics, and something is going to give on that. Like most of the country, Ms Rees is questioning the government. She wants to know whether it's appropriate to keep putting the financial risk of the energy transition onto you and me, the taxpayers of Australia. Do the Prime Minister and Chris Bowen take any notice of these things? Or are they too busy having a morning coffee and working out how they can spin their way out of it?